Hi, so I'm Sean. I'm starting this YouTube channel at the advice from my sister-in-laws, from my brothers, from my friends, from random strangers I meet on the street and walking around the lake that I live right next to. I'm starting this YouTube channel because people keep telling me I need to. So a little bit about myself. I've been fortunate enough where I've taken the last year off work in order to write a book, and I'm super excited about it. It comes out this summer, called Hacking the Corporate Jungle: How to Work Less, Make More, and Actually Like Your Life. And in writing that book in the last year, I've been very fortunate enough where I've been able to actually unplug from society. And what I mean by that is, I have two kids. I take them to school. I have to feed them. So I haven't become a hermit up in the mountains. Not that there's anything wrong with being a hermit. Um, Go hermits. But in being able to unplug, I've been able to get out of the popular group think that goes on in society today and started thinking for myself and really, really seeing things as they are. And writing this book, and why I think most of the people I encounter tell me I need a YouTube channel, I need to get this message out, is there was always this problem in the back of my brain of how to solve the larger economy. Something's wrong. And I studied business back in college. I've studied finance ever since. I've studied investing and how to make money. And reality is the game is rigged, and it doesn't make sense, and it's not very efficient, and it actually doesn't produce what we need it to produce. And it's not actually motivated, it's not actually structured to motivate us for the right behavior. And so this problem lived rent free in my head as I was writing my book and working on it. And eventually, just a couple weeks ago, the solution popped into my head. It literally came to me. I found it from a couple other sources as well that just kind of showed itself. And so I'm starting this YouTube channel now because the solution basically involves two things, right? It involves individual choices by all of us, right? Us making better decisions in order to improve our society. And some of that is actually going to be how we have faith in one another and how we have faith in ourselves and how we have faith in our governments. And number two, the larger thing is we're going to have to make some bets as a larger society, and we're going to actually have to put some things into place and remove some things that are currently in place to make the economy actually work for us, and instead of it being its own economic game. So in that year that I've unplugged, so it's taking one step back, in that year that I've unplugged, you can see I replaced my TV with this awesome bookshelf behind me with art and books, and I basically using my major form of entertainment has been art and books now, and I read probably 3 or 4 books a week. And so the amount of information I've taken in the last year has been a lot. And I went through this initial detox period where I got out of what everyone else was thinking, where I constantly was worried about, the day-to-day troubles that everyone else was worried about. And I started getting into these larger philosophies and these larger ways that we think our species works and that we think our world works. And I started finding that a lot of them just aren't true. And in some of that, I read a lot of books, some from some experts in academia who have really explored certain subjects like debt, money, finance, the origins of trade, the first capitalistic society. I've gotten into a lot of that. I'm not going to bore you with all the details because that's what I like to study. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet so we can work together and solve this thing. So to that effect, there are going to be things, as I said earlier, that you're going to need to do to become a good citizen and help this new system really flourish. There are going to be also things that as a society we're going to need to do and bet on and agree to in order to really create an economy and a world that can usher in a golden age and really work for everybody and really create healthier, longer lives. So to that effect, we're going to start first at the underlying paradigm or belief system that unbuckles everything. And it's the belief system, right, that we make money based on the amount of value we create, which is not actually true. Because if that were true, bankers and Wall Street investors would not make so much money, right? Does anyone know what kind of value they make? No, they just don't, right? There's no economic value to it. Where we can all agree is teachers create a lot of value, right? And they all watch our kids, and having someone who sends his kid to a great school, his 2 kids to a great school, I can tell you education is not cheap, and as expensive as it is, teachers still don't get paid a lot. In the economy, right, the whole idea of we make money based on the amount of value we create and based on how useful we are has actually been not true at all, has been very lopsided. And so that underlying paradigm that we believe the amount of money we make is indicative of how much value we create, we need to question and we need to immediately look at. And that's actually exactly where we're going to fix the economy and attack things head on, right? Because today, most of the economy functions on debt. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but the reason why this is an issue is, politically speaking, you cannot have a free society. You cannot have free people if they are strapped with debt, right? If you're strapped with debt, you are by definition not free. So you can't be free and be in debt. Why is this an issue? Well, the majority of Americans, or a lot of Americans, have a mortgage. That mortgage, by the time they're done paying off their house, they will have paid for their house 2 or 3 times over, depending on the interest rates at the time, which makes absolutely no sense. So if we go even step deeper and we look at our economy, we look at really what it is, the goal of every business in the economy is essentially to make money. That, if you underpin society, does not make sense, right? Money, if you go back to the origins of money, is actually a unit of measure. It's a way for us to trade and exchange goods that are very different on a universal scale. Money itself is actually not valuable. So the fact that we have a whole game set up in obtaining something that's not valuable makes no sense at all. That's like trying to eat food that doesn't have calories. Again, our economy has brought that whole sphere to the planet. But again, it doesn't make sense at all. Why are we eating food that has no calories? We need calories to survive. The issue becomes, you have all of these businesses who are constantly trying to innovate, who are constantly trying to do their jobs and make more money, and none of us are really stepping back and going, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we doing this? Why am I buying soda? Why am I buying beer without alcohol in it? Why am I buying soda without calories or sugar in it? Like, the whole point of soda is because it has sugar and it's sweet and it fires dopamine in my brain. And so it becomes this whole thing where it's like, when you look around the world, nothing makes sense. Like, the whole economy underpins it all. And that's my theory here, is everything that doesn't make sense is largely underpinned by an economic theory that does not make sense. And that economic theory is that math has to be positive, right? And businesses, have to make money. And that makes no sense, right? A human life has nothing to do with money. A human life has value, and it is what it is, and we all have one, and we all probably want it to be as best as it possibly can. And so having this mechanism around it where they have to make more money than they cost to create value and deserve respect in society just doesn't make any sense. So at the very fundamental belief system of our economy, we have to question what the whole goal of the economy is. Is it to make the most money? And if it is, we have a system that does that pretty well. If it's not, and it's to give the highest quality of life to every individual in the economy and contributing, then we have some huge things that we need to change and some huge things that we need to shift. So I started getting into the economy and I started studying, and the solution that I alluded to earlier was essentially underpins this entire economy, is essentially at the core of why we all work. And debt keeps us all strapped and affects our freedoms, and so we need to get rid of debt, and we'll talk about that in later episodes of how we can economically do that so we don't just have chaos, and right? And we're even going to get into the theory of chaos and why you feel if people aren't buying and sharing things, we have chaos, right? But we're also going to get into how we shift the very motivations and the very goals and the entire system of the economy to point to another goal. So right now, the goal points, as I said earlier, to making money and to profit. If we pointed that goal somewhere else, like creating the best society possible, what we would invest in, what our institutions would be geared for, what entrepreneurs would be signing up to start different companies would be different. In effect, there are ways where we can motivate people to complete good and economic behavior. But again, that's a tricky slope, because modern religions today will often tell you that virtue, that goodness, that those things need to be taught. That's why you send your kids to church or seminary or Sunday school, right? They teach that you need to be taught. But if we fundamentally agree that maybe virtue and goodness and kindness and cooperation in our species is actually fundamental to who we are as beings, suddenly what kind of economy we can bring into the world shifts dynamically, dramatically, right? So to that point, I'm just going to get right to it, and then we'll talk about all the evidence and everything I'm thinking about over the following episodes. But basically, the way we fix the economy is very simple. How we implement it is a little bit more complex, and obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day. To do anything, it's going to take time, but I'm going to keep sending this message out and keep getting it where it needs to go. The way we fix the economy is we have to remove the ability to make money on money. And what I mean by that, right, is interest. When you can charge interest on money, you can make money from money, which means you can make money just by being wealthy versus creating value. So you see, now we get back to that whole assumption that we make money based on the amount of value that we create for a society. Well, that's not really true, because if you start out with a lot of money, you can actually just make money on having all of that money, which underpins and undermines and ruins the whole freaking system. That's what we need to do. We need to attack money at its source, and we need to say money cannot be loaned to entrepreneurs, on mortgages, to anybody who needs money at interest. Now, one of the biggest pushbacks I get on this from the get-go is, okay, we're not going to loan money, we're not going to charge interest on money. Why would anybody loan money? Now this gets to another core belief of our economic system. We all believe we are producers. We all believe we contribute. If you live in a developed nation, if you live in Europe, if you live in an advanced nation like Europe, parts of South America, if you live in a very advanced nation where you have, where you can just order food, there are a lot of different ways to describe an advanced nation. I'm just going to say, if you can order food to your door, it's pretty advanced, right? There's compartmentalization, there's industrialization, there's a globalization of logistics that brings everything to your door, and there's a lot that comes into place for you to just click a button on a phone and bring food to your door. So, what I was saying, back to my whole point. What was I saying? Back to my whole point. If your question or your first feedback is, well, people wouldn't loan money, right? If there's no way to make money on it, that's actually not true, because as we know, money is this unit of measure that makes the economy go around. It makes the world work. And so if you have money, you loaning it out and you letting other people use it, or you working with people who are using it on your behalf, is actually what you'd be motivated to do. Instead of just make money, you'd be motivated to make a difference, or you'd be motivated to fix a problem that's driving you crazy. As a man who has spent a year writing a book and a year out of the workforce, I can tell you, you cannot sit around and do nothing. Now, some people are like, oh, there are very lazy people out there, you can do that. No, you can't. And that's why those lazy people are often alcoholics or drug addicts or have mental illnesses. There are something usually in the way of them doing nothing, right? There's something that causes that, or something they use to facilitate the doing of nothing. It's actually impossible to do nothing. It's truly, like, our species is wired to take action. I mean, look at everything we've built around us. Like, we're not wired to just sit still and sit here. So at the very brunt of my idea, right, I'll close with this. The way to fix the economy is to talk about and fix how we access money. And we'll get into money in the next episode. We'll talk about its origins. We'll talk about where it came from. We'll talk about what Nixon did to it back in the 1970s and the US dollar standard and how the whole world is on it. And we'll talk about how America right now is very poised and actually the perfect candidate to try out a new economic system and really get the world to adopt it, to create a golden age for our entire species. And I'm not kidding. I know this sounds crazy. I know it might sound foo-foo and it might sound like some of those New Earth people, but I promise you this is real. It economically works. The math is there, and it will fundamentally shift the economy into ensuring you and everyone you know can do things and contribute things to the economy that actually make you feel good about yourself. And we're going to get into a lot of the books behind me. We're going to get a lot of the research I've done. But at the core of it, the only thing you need to remember after this first episode is, do you make money from money? And the odds are you probably don't. Unless you're a banker or you're a Wall Streeter or you're a venture capitalist or something like that, you do not make money from money. The majority of you are in debt, and so actually your money, the money you're spending of somebody else's, they are actually making money off you. That's what credit card interest is, right? That's what mortgage interest is. Like, the word interest means somebody is making money off you needing money. If we can attack that, if we can fix that, money is going to flow much better throughout our economy, and people are going to use money to build things they want to create, whether that's creative projects, healthcare projects, humanitarian projects, or just random things they want to create that might make us all laugh. Like, that's okay too. Not everything has to totally be productive, and we'll get into beliefs about why you think that as well. So thanks. Please pass this along. Subscribe. I look forward to fixing the economy with you. Welcome. It's a great day. Smile. Thanks for being alive.